this week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. I'm Jon Strum, and I'm the host of the Real Talk MS podcast. Each week, Real Talk MS reaches thousands of people in more than 100 countries around the world with the news that people affected by MS need to know. My wife, Jean, lived with progressive MS for 23 years, so I've had a front row seat experiencing all the ways that MS can impact a family. Currently, I'm a member of the International Progressive MS Alliance Scientific Steering Committee. I'm a district activist leader and trustee for the National MS Society, and I chair the Society's California Government Relations Advisory Committee. I'd like to welcome all of you who are joining us on GoToWebinar, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, as well as Twitch. The MS Society's Ask an MS Expert webcast is designed to give us a place for the MS community to connect and to connect you with MS experts who are ready to answer your questions on the topics that impact people affected by MS every day. Please feel free to post your comments and questions in the GoToWebinar chat box. MS navigators are online throughout today's program, answering your questions and connecting you with resources. I'd like to acknowledge and thank today's premier national sponsor, EMD Serono. Support from MS community partners helps the National MS Society reach its goal of providing up-to-date information and support through programs like Ask an MS Expert. A healthy immune system is essential, especially for people living with MS. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly served as a serious reminder of how important it is to keep our immune system strong. Today, we're sharing strategies that people with MS can use to boost their immune system, from eating well and sleeping better to exercising more and managing everyday stress. Joining me for our conversation are today's experts, Dr. Vijayshree Yadav and Dr. Alexander Ng. Dr. Yadav is a clinician scientist with joint appointments as a professor of neurology at Oregon Health and Science University and an active Veterans Affairs Rehabilitation Research and Development and Clinical Science Research and Development Service Merit Grant awardee at the Veterans Affairs Portland Healthcare Services. Dr. Yadav also serves as the director of the Oregon Health and Science University MS Center and assistant director of clinical care at the MS Center of Excellence West at the Veterans Affairs Portland Healthcare Services. Dr. Alexander Ng is a professor in the program in exercise science, Department of Physical Therapy at Marquette University, and a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine. Dr. Ng is a researcher who has studied MS for 26 years. His research is described as integrative and translational and focuses on fatigue, exercise responses, and quality of life. Most recently, Dr. Ng has begun to move outside his laboratory into the community to investigate and promote the benefits of recreational physical activity, including partnered social dance for persons with MS. And Dr. Ng currently serves as a member of the MS Society's Wellness Research Working Group and Pathways to Cures think tank. I'd like to begin by inviting Dr. Yadav to join me. Thanks for being with us today. There we go. Good to see you, Dr. Yadav.
Hi, John.
The immune system is a complex system that, among its other functions, protects our bodies from infections. Different immune system cells take action when we become infected with bacteria, virus, or parasite. Can you help us understand how the immune system responds when a foreign invader is present?
So, John, immune system actually is probably the most important organ system of the body. Not only humans, I think vertebrate, non-vertebrates, everywhere, immune system is really critical. And for us humans, the way we interact with the outside world, whether it is anything that we breathe in, anything that touches us, anything that we kind of ingest, all of that can potentially harm the body. So body has to have a system that it recognizes the bad elements and how it will protect itself. So that's probably the most important aspect of immune system, how to protect itself. So immune system has developed over kind of, millions and millions of years of evolution, and it is a very intricate and extremely beautiful system, how it protects us as like a human being and as a vertebrate animal.
What's the difference between innate and adaptive immunity?
So broadly, we divide the immune system into two systems. Which one of it is specific, and the other one is non-specific immune system. So innate is what we were sort of born with, and how we are how we attack something which is like quick in response. That is innate, but it has to be non-specific. It does not differentiate between what type of attack it is. It could be bacteria, virus, any pathogen that it is, but it has to have very quick, like within minutes, within seconds of kind of how the body is attacked. On the other hand, adaptive system is one which has been it is very specific to a specific pathogen. For example, like you are specific to antibody, specific to a virus, specific to a bacteria. So the specific response is what an adaptive immune system will be kind of working on. So those are the two broad systems that we have, and they work together. They don't really have they don't work in isolation. They are affected by each other.
Besides infectious organisms, what other conditions might trigger an immune response?
So besides infection, of course, in autoimmune disease, which is MS is one of the autoimmune diseases, this is where immune system can become dysfunctional. So so autoimmune system or autoimmune diseases rather are a set of pathological state where the body, instead of protecting the immune cells, instead of protecting the body, starts to attack its own cells. It could be organ specific, or it could be a non-specific. So we have systemic autoimmune diseases and you can organ-specific autoimmune diseases. So MS is mostly considered a CNS disease, meaning central nervous system disease, where the autoimmune system is attacking the central nervous system, which includes your optic nerve, your brain, spinal cord.
And what are some of the factors that can depress our immune system?
So things which some of the factors which can impact our immune system is like some of it could be that you're born with, that you just don't really have the right type of cells, and those are kind of inherited disorders. Others are acquired, meaning that you were born with completely intact immune system, but something happened and now your immune system is dysfunctional, and it can present in a variety of ways, and so it becomes a more of immune deficiency state. So it is acquired immune deficiency state or acquired immune dysfunction state. So MS I consider as acquired immune deficient or immune dysfunction state, where for whatever reason we just do not know why MS happens in the first place, but a big part of the MS is that immune system is sort of attacking its own central nervous system cells.
We know that age impacts the immune system in a process called immunosenescence. Can you tell us more about this process?
Right. I think when we are born, we are born with a certain set of immune system, kind of a system, and then as we evolve from childhood to adolescent to adult and to kind of older age, this immune system is changing throughout. I think we probably are at best when we are in our younger, young adult age, where we are really fully developed our immune system. But as time goes by, the immune cells or immune system as a whole, because of I would say the general wear and tear and how the body has gone through the stress of life, things will change with time. So older people are, and plus as we get older, we are more prone to different diseases. So those diseases can also affect the immune system, so making the immune system sort of not as optimal functioning. So that's I think in a late term, what I understand by immunosenescence.
MS is an immune-mediated disease in which the body's immune system mistakenly attacks myelin in the central nervous system. What does it mean when we say that MS is an immune-mediated disease?
So I think that's probably partially correct. Immune mediated, meaning immune system is playing a big role in MS pathogenesis or MS causation or MS propagation, how the disease is kind of progressing. As you know, MS is a chronic disease, and the active form of the disease, where the disease is characterized by having relapsing form or relapses or active inflammation that lasts for probably a few decades. The peak is probably between age 20 to 50, and so I think that's the time when you have immune system sort of much more active, and you are actively undergoing or could be undergoing damage to the central nervous system, central nervous system organs, I guess, because of this immune dysfunction. On the other hand, you have this whole process which is probably running in the background, where this neurodegeneration is happening at the same time. So immune system dysfunction is just a part of MS pathology, not the whole answer, but it plays a huge role. And I think we'll probably talk more about that, how the current disease-modifying therapies or the treatment that we have available currently, they target mostly the immune system.
Well, speaking of disease-modifying therapies, as we know, they've been found to reduce the number of MS relapses, delay the progression of disability, and limit new disease activity. However, some disease-modifying therapies may actually further compromise the immune system and leave people with MS susceptible to infection. Can you share some examples of disease-modifying therapies that may compromise someone's immune system and explain how that might affect a person with MS?
Sure. So currently, John, we have more than 20 FDA-approved disease-modifying therapies, and the first therapies, when they came in early 90s, they are called immune modulators. So they're not immune suppressants. If you use the term immune, none of the disease-modifying therapies that we currently have are truly called immune suppressants. They are immune modulators. So I think that's the difference between the disease-modifying therapies like that. But at the same time, certain disease-modifying therapy, they do affect the immune cells in a way that one can be at very high risk of having infection. So, for example, Vijayshree or natalizumab, that was highly effective, really works beautifully on the lymphocytes. So it blocks the entry of the lymphocytes getting into the central nervous system, and hence it can literally stop the disease like an inflammation. So you can have pretty much negligible amount of relapses, negligible amount of new MRI lesions because of the drug. But at the same time, because the cells are not really going into the central nervous system, the lymphocytes are not getting into the central nervous system, it is losing that surveillance, which the cells are doing in their normal state. So for example, this disease called PML, or progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, it's a viral disease which does not really happen in people who have intact immune system. It only happens in people who have impaired immune system. So with Vijayshree, the prevalence of PML is very well known. Especially people who have had exposure to the virus, to this particular virus, which is JC virus, which is the cause of this PML, that is kept in check. The JC virus is kept in check by intact immune system. But once you take that immune system sort of out of normal, then you can have the risk of this disease. So it's a pretty serious disease, potentially fatal, and it's a real thing which people have to be aware of.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yadav. Before we continue our discussion, I'd like to take a moment to welcome those of you who've continued to join us. Please let us know what's on your mind. Type your questions into the question or chat box on GoToWebinar. MS navigators are online throughout today's program, answering your questions and connecting you to resources. Our Ask an MS Expert program takes place at this same time every Friday. So please help us make sure that everyone knows about it by sharing news about the webcast with your family and friends. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Ng to join me on camera.
Hello, John.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
We've been talking about how the immune system is affected in people living with MS and how some disease-modifying therapies could further compromise their immune system. Now, the good news is that there are always ways that we can help our immune system to maintain its balance. Things like exercise, eating a healthy diet, getting good quality sleep, and stress management. Let's first talk about the impact that exercise or lifestyle physical activity can have on our immune system. Tell me, how does our immune system respond when we exercise?
Well, that's actually it's not a direct question because it depends an awful lot on whether the exercise is acute or chronic, and also the intensity or the difficulty of the exercise. That is, how hard do we feel we're exerting ourselves? So if we take an example of, let's say, what's recommended for people, that would be moderate exercise, moderate physical activity. And if you had an acute bout, in general, it's thought that so-called immune surveillance or the ability to prevent infections is actually enhanced. However, if we're talking about high intensity exercise, and this is an appropriate topic, particularly now with the Olympics going on, and we've been seeing some amazing performances, but after an acute bout of high intensity exercise, there could be a transient decrease in immune function, if you say. So it depends on the intensity and whether or not it's a single bout or if it's chronic. Now, if it's chronic, then we get into kind of the health-related benefits of physical activity. And if we talk about moderate exercise or physical activity, the recommendations, chronic exercise is thought to improve the immune system and also decrease overall levels of inflammation. Now, if we go to those elite athletes again, there's some epidemiological evidence that suggests that there could actually be some type of overall depression, let's say, of the immune system, making a person more susceptible to illnesses, particularly upper respiratory tract infections. So, long answer to a short question.
Well, I think you already started to answer my next question. I was going to ask you, what are some of the benefits people living with MS can experience when they incorporate moderate exercise or lifestyle physical activity into their daily routine?
Well, if we talk about the immune system, and of course there are other benefits of exercise, if we talk about the immune system, and if we're talking about moderate exercise, physical activity, we can expect to see a decrease overall decreased level of inflammation. And MS is an inflammatory disease, so we want to try and reduce inflammation as much as we can. There could be, this is often discussed, there could be an interaction perhaps with some of the disease modifying drugs, but if there is an overall depression of immune function, either through drugs or through the MS disease itself, then this could bring, moderate exercise could bring a person's immune function back up to where it should be. I would have to caution though, again, about, let's say, overdoing it. So if you're new to exercise and you're just starting an exercise program, if you're inspired by some of the performances of the Olympics, whether it be beach volleyball, marathon, or triathlon, or even weightlifting, if you start overdoing it, then you could be putting yourself at risk for infections or illnesses.
Does does exercise have an impact on other chronic illnesses that can exacerbate MS, like diabetes or hypertension?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's really kind of how our field came about, looking at the health risk reduction benefits of exercise. We now know that exercise is it's very important to prevent cardiovascular disease, certain types of cancer, hypertension. It can be an aid to reduce obesity. So yeah, it almost sounds like a miracle drug, but it's something that we all have access to It's cheap and it's free. So if we want to try and decrease some of the things that most of us will die from, people with MS, tend to die from cardiovascular disease and cancer as opposed to complications of their MS. So it's very important to incorporate exercise or moderate physical activity. We've often heard it from American Heart Association. You need to get your exercise in to help prevent cardiovascular diseases.
A moment ago, you mentioned that too much exercise can actually have a negative impact on the immune system. How does this happen?
Well, I'm not sure if we know exactly how it happens, and to be honest, it's still controversial. Some people think that what we thought was depression of the immune system is actually immune cells moving, let's say, from the circulation into the tissues, or from the tissues into the circulation. If we measure immune cells in the circulation, if we see a decrease in immune cells, then it could be that they've just moved into the tissue, let's say muscle tissue, where it's doing its job. Now, having said this, the epidemiological studies, primarily based on endurance events such as marathons, have shown an increased incidence of upper respiratory tract infections after long, high intensity, long duration events. And in general, it seems to be that if I was going to say there's a general consensus, it seems to be pointing towards the fact that if not managed correctly, chronic high intensity exercise could have a depressive effect on the immune system.
How can someone know if they're doing too much or not enough exercise?
Ooh, that's almost a holy grail question. It's highly individual. And so it's very important that a person only examine themselves or consider themselves. So if I was to go out and, let's say, go on a jog or go on a run with one of my neighbors who's just decided they're going to start an exercise program, they might be a little bit overweight, they may be sedentary. If we go running, and if we go at my pace, I might be very comfortable, yet that person might be really huffing and puffing. So that would be high intensity exercise for my neighbor. Yet if I compare it to, an Olympic athlete, it'd be like a walk in the park for them. So it's individual, and you want to get it so that you're at about a moderate rate. So let's say from a scale, 0 to 10, you want to be somewhere between 3 and 5, where 10 would be maximal exercise or as hard as you think you can go. So that's the first step. If you're getting too much exercise, then you're going to be too tired. You may be fatigued because of the exercise, and you may be wiped out the rest of the day. This could be bad for someone with MS. Let me emphasize that exercise does not bring on an exacerbation. However, it could contribute to whatever MS fatigue you may have going on for that day, at that particular time. So there are dangers in getting too much exercise, and again, the depressive effects on the immune system. So you have to kind of pay attention to your body. You could be breathing hard. You may be just breaking into a sweat. That's fine. But if you start going where you don't think you can maintain a pace for, let's say, 10 minutes or so, you're probably going too hard or harder than necessary. Now, if you're not getting enough exercise, now we have to start talking about, and I've kind of thrown these terms around as if they were the same, but physical activity and exercise. And I think you even brought up recreational physical activity. So physical activity would be just kind of getting your heart rate up above what it would be at rest, moving, your muscles are active. And this is very important. So now, on the other hand, if we exercise, this is purposeful physical activity, it's regular and with a goal. So if I wanted to become a better runner, or if I wanted to start riding more so I could take part in a bike MS event, then you might actually be physically training for something. That would be exercise. So with exercise, let's say your fitness would improve recreational physical activity, it would maintain, and they're both good. But if you wanted to improve, you're going to need to continue to stress your body a little bit with the exercise, and this will promote adaptations. So how do you know if you're getting enough? There are some guidelines. In fact, the MS Society recently published some guidelines the earlier part of the year. And the recommendation is 150 minutes of recreational physical activity, leisure activity, or moderate exercise. So we could kind of also think about how do we know if we're getting that amount. And it just so happens that I'm helping one of my graduate students with a study. So I'm actually wearing a physical activity monitor, so I could download this at the end of the day and see how I'm doing. A lot of people wear various wrist-worn monitors, so you can measure either your physical activity or how many steps you're taking. So you can say, well, let's say if I need 7,000 steps per day, you can actually monitor it and see if you're getting up to that level.
You've talked a little bit about some of the negative aspects of too much or more vigorous exercise. We know that it depletes the vitamins in our muscles that can help with immunity. So what's your advice for anyone who's doing more vigorous or prolonged exercise?
Two things. I want to clarify that high intensity or long duration exercise is not necessarily bad. There's something called HIIT training, which is high intensity interval training. And in these types of exercises, you go for a short period of time, but at a pretty hard level. And that should be incorporated into anybody's exercise program. It's shown to be very effective, particularly for people with MS. Now, get me back on track if I start going off somewhere weird. So high intensity exercise can be good if you're adapted to it. Again, so if this high intensity exercise is just normal for you, you could be doing okay, but you just need to get enough rest, get enough sleep, so that you can recover and you don't go into this immunodepressive state. I'm going to circle back. What was the original question again?
Well, I was wondering if you had advice for anyone who's doing more vigorous or prolonged exercise.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you get enough rest. Make sure you get enough rest. Make sure you monitor your symptoms. Pay attention to your body core temperature. A lot of people with MS, if you're exercising at a high intensity, and if you've been doing this for a while, you've probably already adapted some strategies. This could be drinking a slushy before exercise, immersing yourself in a tub of ice cubes or something, or wearing a cooling vest. That might be a more practical method. So maintain, you know yourself better than I do. So I can't really give you advice. Specific advice. I can give you some general advice. So make sure if you're temperature sensitive, make sure you're exercising in the morning or evening when it's a little cooler. Be creative. If you're a jogger or a runner, or if you're a hiker, or if you're just going out there and walk, don't stop during the winter. See if you can find a way to do it inside a mall. We actually have an Olympic ice skating rink for speed skaters here in the Milwaukee area, and I know that during the summertime, a lot of people with MS will go there, if not to skate, then to walk around the walking course, which they have inside the rink. So make sure you get plenty of rest. You had talked about depletion of vitamins and other nutrients. If you're really exercising at a high level, probably the best thing that you can do that's supported by the research is to have carbohydrates after your exercise is finished. And what this does, it helps decrease some of the stress response that is brought about by exercise due to not enough carbohydrates. So that might be something more specific. Eat a banana with some water.
Thank you for that prescription, Dr. Ng. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Yadav to join me again. Welcome back. For people living with MS, a well-balanced diet is an important factor in optimizing the immune system and their overall health. Can you explain how nutrition can affect someone's immune system?
Absolutely. I think immune system and nutrition, they are, I think, very closely connected. And the reason I say that, like a lot of the diseases which are because of malnutrition, like, when I say malnutrition, like they are overeating or they are like poorly eating, so they're not watching like the type of nutrients or type of vitamins, mineral that need to be like there for body to be optimally functioning for fighting any pathogen. So that diet actually is probably one of the biggest role. For example, disease states such as diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, these terms, they are, or these disease states rather, they are all related to our lifestyle. And lifestyle not only includes the diet, but diet and exercise and how else we are managing our overall, even stress actually. So I think, so obesity, for example, like, which has become a huge problem in our, it's a public health problem in our country now, with more than 70% of the general population basically having either overweight or obesity. I would say, like, definitely, or severe obesity is definitely more than 15 to 20% of the population. So it's similarly affecting the MS population as well. So when you have such a prevalent disease state which is affecting our MS patients, that disease state itself can compromise your immune system, and then that will lead to more complications. For example, like, you have the diet which is poor, so basically you're taking high calorie diet and which is poor in otherwise other nutritional component, you are bound to develop higher body weight, which will then lead to potential diabetes, high cholesterol, which will all lead to poorer cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular status of the body, plus affecting the immune system. So they're all interconnected. So if you are not in the balance, body will not be functioning optimally.
Many different diets have been suggested as a treatment for MS. However, evidence of their effectiveness is very limited. What dietary recommendations should someone with MS be following?
So I agree with you, like, even though many diets have been tried, but all the trials which have been done so far, the studies which have been conducted so far, they're very limited in scope. Either they were not really having enough sample size or they were really short in duration. So you can't really make any, kind of long-term inferences based upon the studies which have been conducted thus far. Probably the biggest or most famous diet in the olden days was Swank diet, and Swank diet was sort of devised by Dr. Swank, who observed that people with MS, and this is in 1950s, 60s, when there were no disease-modifying therapy or no treatment for MS rather. At that time, he observed that people with MS or like in general were consuming higher saturated fat. So he came up with this concept that if you consume low saturated fat, that could improve your MS. And I mean, at least his studies were, even though they're not really scientifically solid, they did suggest that if you are eating healthier with low saturated fat content, you could be living longer, you could be having less cardiovascular kind of disease states, which will then adversely impact MS. Now, coming to 2021, I think we have seen a lot other options, such as Mediterranean diet has been tried. Now we have the modified paleo diet, which has been also kind of brought into the press. But all of them, they work in different ways. And I'm not sure we have one diet. I personally would say, the benefits of, for example, we also did a low-fat vegan diet trial, like the McDougall diet that we were testing. So all of them, when you look at, if you're balancing the diet, and balancing meaning something which follows the US dietary guidelines, I think that itself is a very healthy diet. And there is data now emerging that the Mediterranean diet could be healthy for brain health in general. And in fact, there's a small trial coming from, from East Coast, where they have looked into potential neuro kind of protective benefit of the Mediterranean diet, which is called the Medi diet, or MIND diet rather. So that, that could be an option, but I think those long-term studies, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years study, have not been conducted. So in general, the diets which will be cardioprotective or which would be healthy from the cardiovascular perspective, in my opinion, would also be quite helpful for MS patients.
We know that there are some foods that are beneficial when it comes to alleviating inflammation. What are some of these foods that can help reduce inflammation?
So I think the anti-inflammatory diet, frankly, I think I've been struggling myself, like trying to identify how to really define this anti-inflammatory diet. But I think what I have learned so far in the last, I would say 15, 20 years of my own research into this is the diet which is, it should not be high calorie diet. Definitely, I think the caloric intake of the diet determines sort of the inflammatory potential of the diet. So I would say low calorie diet would be pro-inflammatory. Diet which are saturated fat rich. I mean, things like red meat, I think they're not necessarily like, healthy. And that would be probably the pro-inflammatory diet category. So things which are complex carb, a lot of antioxidant rich food, like which is basically all of your fruits and vegetables, which are like, green or all the colored items that we have in our fresh produce. I think those will be probably anti-inflammatory versus something coming from animal products.
You mentioned, I think, red meat as something that could be pro-inflammatory. What are some other foods that might actually trigger inflammation?
I think high sugar, especially simple sugar, which is like, definitely can be pro-inflammatory. So anything which increases your blood sugars rapidly, I would say like, would be prone for causing inflammation.
There are some nutrients like vitamin C, zinc, iron, and folic acid that play a role in our immune response. Additionally, some vitamins seem to be of particular interest to people living with MS. Vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12. What are the benefits of vitamins and vitamin supplements for someone living with MS?
In general, I would say vitamins, they only have a limited role per se, except for probably vitamin D, because vitamin D deficiency clearly has a connection with MS. So besides that, most other vitamins, they don't really have any solid data or evidence-driven information that we can really use for in MS. I would say a wholesome diet, which is extremely nutritious, rich with like minerals and vitamin, will be the best option versus taking supplements. I mean, nowadays supplement industry is like thriving, and I think we all believe that supplements will be our sort of lifesaver. I'm not sure about that, because the supplements can cause toxicity. If you take too much of anything, you can become toxic. So I'm not sure. And vitamin C is considered like an extremely safe, but I'm not sure you can you have to be careful. I would say like, vitamins coming from the food will be the best resource versus like, taking mega doses of supplements. Because we have seen in our experience, even B6, for example, you mentioned B6. B6, we have seen toxicity with B6, which can cause nerve damage. So it's not benign. B12, like people take it because, there's a notion that B12 can help with fatigue in MS, or it can affect the immune, especially the nervous system health can be beneficial by B complex. There is truth to that to some extent, but I think overdosing can also be a problem.
We've heard from Kim, who says her neurologist told her not to take those supplements that claim to boost her immune system because since she has MS, boosting her immune system is a bad thing. Is it safe for someone living with MS to boost their immune system, or can that increase MS disease activity?
So I think, to me, these terms like immune boosting, I think is a fad. I'm not sure it's one should not be using anything in excess. I mean, any supplement to increase immune system, I think you do not need that in MS. I think MS is not because immune deficiency or you need certain supplements to boost that. You just do not need that. I think it's just, frankly, we do not understand why MS happens in the first place. And so immune boosters are not the right way in MS at all. I mean, again, I'm not sure which specific supplement they're talking about, but remember, supplements have to be metabolized by the liver, by the kidney, by our different organs, and you can damage those. And we have seen that. We have seen examples. You can be allergic to supplements. So, supplements are not necessarily healthy. So be very, very careful. I mean, we have done enough, I think, research into this, and I strongly believe whatever you do, watch that carefully and like work with your primary care doctor or your neurologist, in terms of safety of those supplements.
I heard you say, as you were talking about vitamins, that the one vitamin that may be of importance to people living with MS is vitamin D. Mm-hmm. Why is that important for people with MS?
So vitamin D, first of all, I think has some very unique connections with the immune system. There have been very good studies looking at connection of vitamin D and MS itself. So whether it is connected to, like for example, obesity, people with high body mass index or with like high fat mass rather, they can be at higher risk of having deficient vitamin D levels. And those patients can be at high risk of having infections in general. But with MS, you can have obesity, and the risk of MS has now been kind of, quite well recognized. So people who have higher, they are like obese, especially when they are younger in the adolescent, they have higher risk of developing MS. And as you, let's say somebody develops MS and now they have high, the obese state, they can have higher disease activity due to the obesity itself. So there are pretty good studies which are kind of connecting the risk of obesity or risk of body mass index and high cholesterol and all these things with MS activity. But coming back to vitamin D though, vitamin D itself, when you see it has connection with the risk of developing MS plus the disease activity, how it how active MS can be, could be related to the vitamin D levels or vitamin D state rather. And there was a data that MS progression, for example, a whole, probably half of our MS patients will undergo this progression of MS as time goes by. And there was a connection between MS progression and vitamin D level as well. So I think keeping all of those things in mind, and that story I think is not complete yet. We are still learning a lot. Things are changing. Evidence keeps changing as we learn more. But at this time, because it's one of the things where immune system and MS directly could be connected to the vitamin D, and it's easy to fix. And we are at risk of having low vitamin D level because of our lifestyles. Because most of us live indoors. We are indoors plus we are covering ourselves. So even if you're going outdoors, we are putting sunscreen. So we are not really getting the amount of vitamin D that one should be getting. So I mean I'm from Northwest, and we have probably 9 months of the year we have clouds, so we can't really even get the optimal amount of UV light or sunlight. So I think our population, more than I would say 80-90% of our population, general population, is at risk of vitamin D deficiency. So you have to be very careful about this, and it's easy to supplement. Unless you're careful about dietary intake, you have to take supplements. So that's where I would say one supplement which should be used. And there are easy ways to check it. You can check the vitamin D levels in the blood and optimize your intake accordingly.
And what are some dietary sources of vitamin D?
So dietary resources mostly will be animal-based, especially marine, fish is a big resource, or vitamin D unfortunately does not really come naturally in the food. So most of the time it has to be fortified, it has to be added to the food. For example, even if it's dairy product, dairy does not really have vitamin D, it has to be added. So dairy product, whichever is available, it's milk or cheese or whatever, they can all, yogurt, all of those could be pretty good resource of vitamin D. But fish in general, salmon, for example, all of them are really rich resources of vitamin D.
We've heard that there are some herbal supplements like echinacea, turmeric, garlic, and green tea that claim to boost the immune system. Is there any scientific evidence to support this?
The data is just not there. I won't say, I think all of what is in the public domain right now, it's all anecdote. There's no solid research to really support, especially I'm talking about human research or research in MS to really answer these questions. So I'm not sure I will really, I'll agree that I do not agree that any of these things they probably have potential. The studies have to be done. But at this point today, I'm not sure I have evidence that I can say these products are immune boosting or they are truly beneficial with MS. And I'm not saying like, we should not do the study. We definitely have to do the study, but be careful, like, and don't overdo anything. And any herb also can cause a lot of toxicity. So, I mean, in fact, like we were looking into green tea extract as potential, like, treatment for MS, and like it caused liver toxicity, significant liver toxicity. So I think one has to be careful, and that we can probably give many examples of other herbs also which can potentially cause problems. So be careful.
Today, there are many research studies that are focused on the role of intestinal bacteria or the gut microbiome as it relates to MS. Does the gut microbiome play a role in the immune system?
I think the data is emerging that it is playing a big role. In fact, if you look at the gut, it probably has the largest amount of immune cells or immune part of the immune system resides in gut. So what we eat, how we, whatever we're consuming, it has to go through this whole processing. And immune system, all of the different organelles within our gut, they are huge in our immune response in general. So I think that will be probably true for MS as well. We don't really have any targeted treatment as such, like focus, like using, let's say, microbiome as our target. But I think, in future, I'm sure you will have something more specific which can target, microbiome in the gut, and then maybe it'll help MS. But at this time, we are just learning. There's so much to learn right now, and so much not enough data that we really need to. And it's going to be complex. It's not going to be easy to tease out, whether this is the cause or that's the cause. But some of the disease-modifying therapy, I think there is some emerging small studies which are showing that they are impacting the gut microbiome too. So there is potential for sure.
Quality sleep is also important to maintaining overall health and wellness, but sometimes it's hard to get. Sleep difficulties are more common in people living with MS than in the general population, with about half of the people with MS experiencing some sort of sleep disorder like sleep apnea or insomnia. How much sleep do we need? And is it really all about the number of hours of sleep, or is it about the quality of our sleep?
I think I agree with you, John, completely. Like, sleep is definitely one of the biggest things that we require, we need as humans, or even vertebrates also, or I would say non-humans. Sleep is really critical, and I think it's the quality of sleep that matters more than the quantity. And the quantity of sleep, how much one requires, varies upon a variety of factors. Age is a big factor. When you are born, the baby is sleeping for almost 20 hours, 22 hours. As you get older, things change, and by the time you are in your 60, 70, you don't really sleep for straight 8 hours or straight. You can't sleep for 10 hours straight. It changes with the with the lifespan as we move. However, the quality of sleep will matter throughout your lifespan. And it's not the number of hours, as I said. So some people can function just fine with only 6 hours of sleep. And some people require absolutely 10 hours of sleep to be able to function. So I think it's very dependent on individual. It could be genetic. Some of it could be your own habits, what type of personalities you have. All of these can impact people who can have a lot of anxiety issues, or who can have what we call type A personality. They tend to sleep very little actually, but overall, if you see people who are sleep deprived, they cannot function well, absolutely not. And that will in fact affect your immune system, and then will impact your general health.
Another major step in supporting a healthy immune system is managing stress. Now, we know that stress is just part of everyday life, and living with MS can sometimes make the stress of daily life feel a little more overwhelming. Both acute and chronic stress trigger something called our fight or flight response. What is that fight or flight response, and does that impact our immune system?
Absolutely. I think so. The way stress functions is it functions through different hormones. And the stress, of course, it's generated in the brain, but at the same time, the key, the seat of the hormone production is also sitting in the brain. So there's a direct connection between how we handle stress and how it affects our entire hormone system, which will then impact functioning of the immune system as well. So there's a direct connection between, like, stress and hormones and immune system. And then in terms of like the flight or fight response that you're talking about, so that's also directly connected to the hormones. So these are hormones which are released in response to how we fight or how we, like, how we see a threat or how we perceive a threat. So those hormones, they have benefit in short term, but they can have long term, in long term they can damage our system as well, like an immune system in particular. So I mean, stress is something that, as you rightly said, like, we have to live with stress. The key is how you cope with stress, how you manage stress, and and everybody has different way of handling that. But I think there are coping skills which can be learned, though, and there are behaviors that can be learned, and one can easily, adapt them into their lifestyle based upon the experience that you've had and how you can evolve your handling of the stress. So I completely agree with you. Stress, stress and immune system, they are connected very intricately and very closely, I should say. And then, managing stress is a skill that can be learned and, should be learned. I think all of us, like MS or not MS, you have to know how to handle stress so that, we can live a more happy and, like, more meaningful life that way.
Agreed. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Ng to please join us again. You've both shared some important information about how the immune system interacts with everyone, especially people living with MS. And now I'd like to ask each of you to share your top 3 takeaways that you'd like our audience to remember. Dr. Ng?
Thank you, John. Yeah, my first one would certainly be that not enough exercise is bad. So if you're not exercising now, you should find a way to start. There's a sweet spot with exercise. So if you're getting enough moderate exercise or physical activity now, keep it up. Congratulations. And then too much exercise could be bad. So if you're trying to train for some type of a goal, make sure you manage your stress, make sure you manage your sleep and your nutritional input so that you do not suffer from the effects of too much exercise.
And Dr. Yadav?
Thanks, John. So I think my takeaway points would be wellness overall. I think wellness in MS is extremely critical. And when I talk about wellness, I'm talking about everything from your lifestyle, your stress management, your sleep, your exercise, as Alexandra said. All of them are really critical. And I think diet to me is really important. Besides the disease-modifying therapies, I think we can do a very good job of disease control with the disease-modifying therapy, at least for relapsing type of MS, relapsing forms of MS. But beyond that, like, you have other aspects of MS which can be very well controlled by lifestyle, interventions, and diet being very easy in a way intervention that can be and that can impact your general cardiovascular health, in a big way. So I think it's very impactful. I won't say go for extreme diets, definitely not. Do anything, and something that you can sustain for life. And it is something that we have to live with, and we have to do every day, several times a day. We have to think about what you eat. So that's really important, what you put into your body. I would say, for me, the body is like a temple. You have to really take care of it and really keep it pure. So I think eat very healthy, very and mindfully, don't overeat, or it should be nutrition, very nutritious diet in general. Stress management, absolutely critical. Stress management, especially and you can adopt different techniques. Some people find exercise is a very good way of managing stress. Other people find meditation as a great way of other people use their habits, whether they are into music or sports or painting or anything that can help you alleviate stress or cope with stress, because stress is not going to go away ever. All of us have seen, going from childhood to adults. There's stress at every level. We have to live with this. But how you cope in different ages, different phases of life, I think it's an art which we have to learn, and we have to really kind of master at it, and which we can do with support of the family. So I think having social support is really critical. Having friends, that people you can talk to, all of that can really help with managing stress. And doctors can only do so much. I would say, I think doctors can see you and whatever, half an hour, 1 hour they spend with you. But I think the rest of the time you're not spending with the doctor. So you have to really follow the social connection that you have, having a great aptitude, great attitude for mindset, with yes, I can beat this, I can do this, and I think those are big things. I strongly feel if we adapt if we adopt in our day to day, especially with MS, absolutely critical. And I know MS patients are very resilient. I mean, I really I'm so proud of all of my patients. I can't tell you. I mean, I learn from them every day, but I think yes, they can definitely do better if they are investing in themselves.
Well, I want to thank all of you who submitted your questions, and thank you, Drs. Yadav and Ng, for being with us today. I think that one of the best things that anyone can do for themselves, especially during these uncertain times, is to make sure that the information that they're getting is credible and reliable. So we'd like to share some resources with you, and these are resources that you can count on to be current and credible. For additional information on boosting your immune system, please visit www.nationalmssociety.org/livingwellwithms. And don't forget to put a hyphen in between living well with MS. I want to remind you that the National MS Society's MS Navigator team is your best partner when it comes to connecting you to the very best information and resources on living with MS. You can reach an MS Navigator by phone, email, or through the Society's website by chat. I'll also remind you that the MS Society brings people together through peer connection programs like self-help groups, the MS Friends Helpline and Paired Program, and the National MS Society Facebook community. To learn more, please visit the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/connections-programs. Every week on the Real Talk MS podcast, I continue the conversation that we start here. So I hope you'll take a few minutes and give Real Talk MS a listen. You'll find the Real Talk MS podcast at realtalkms.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And don't just ride, bike MS. Bike MS is more than the ride of a lifetime. Whether you want to cross the finish line in person or take on a new challenge from anywhere, there's a Bike MS event that's right for you. Find out more and be sure to register at bikems.org. You can connect with the National MS Society along with others affected by MS on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I encourage you to like those posts, subscribe to the channels, and make sure that you're on the Society's mailing list, so you'll continue to receive the latest information on MS and updates on upcoming programs like this one. I'd like to thank Drs. Yadav and Ng for joining us today. Please remember that a recording of this webinar will be available at the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/msexpert, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. I hope you'll join us again for next week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. You can always find our upcoming program topics on the National MS Society's website. And now I have a favor to ask each of you. Getting your feedback on today's webinar is important. So you'll see a survey pop up in a moment when we close out the webinar. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll see a link to that survey pinned to the comments section. And on YouTube, you'll find that link in the program description. Completing the survey makes a real difference. The information you provide helps us continuously improve, and it helps shape future webinars. The survey takes just 1 minute, so I hope you'll take a minute to fill it out. On behalf of Dr. Vijayshree Yadav and Dr. Alexander Ng and the National MS Society, I want to thank you once again for joining us. Please stay safe and make healthy choices.